everybody's favorite, and I use that term loosely, news organization, Breitbart is calling for a boycott of Kellogg's products after the cereal maker pulled its advertising from their website.
Hey, so I want to go buy some Frosted Flakes right now.
Frosted Flakes and Special K and Corn Pops and...
Who are Breitbox?
Breitbart?
Or whatever you're talking about.
Breitbart is the alt-right news organization.
Call them what they are. White supremacists.
They're local news?
Neo-Nazi. Breitbart? No, it's a website.
Oh, okay.
I'm not familiar. But
yeah.
Oh, lucky you.
That's why we're friends.
Oh.
Like Breitbart is where that is the racist part of the internet.
That's a lot of internet. But anyway.
But
they're the biggest conservative-leaning website.
But they're not conservative like in a Fox News
right.
sense. They're conservative in like deport all the illegal immigrants.
Or like the antithesis to The Guardian.
Yeah.
And climate change is a hoax, and yeah.
And their former head is now the chief strategist for the Donald Trump transition team.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that tremendous?
That is tremendous.
Don't you feel good about our government?
No comment.
You know, Tom's a little older than me. Tom grew up knowing to not trust the government because Tom remembers Reagan.
Tom grew up in politics, so...
That's true. You know way more about it than any of us.
I do, and it's...
Do you want to talk about it or not?
Sadly, these things have to be ultimately self-correcting. I know everyone gets upset.
Got to break a few eggs is what you're saying?
I'm saying that the pendulum swings one way and then it swings the other, and then when it hits critical mass back on this way, it will swing back. That being said, for whatever reason, social media, the internet, people not finishing high school, the whole thing tends to be drift, and it could be straight up money thing, right? But the whole thing seems to be constantly drifting to the right, and I suspect that it's a combination of economics and education that are going to keep the country on a path to more conservative, and not just conservative, but more like neoconservative with a religious base, which is, you know, they're so wrapped up in, you know, staring at one of these all day and a computer screen and then talking back and forth on Facebook or whatever. So that really the critical thinking is gone. And you have to put effort into that. And the less effort people want to put into that,
people react
the more likely
kids need to get off.
The more likely they are to be susceptible to I don't want to say hate speech, but I want to say that sort of reactionary speech that's very unilateral.
Emotional response.
They get these very visceral responses, and they just commit. So it's, you know, and I hate to say it because I really believe that at its core, this country is supposed to be a secular country, but I don't feel like that's the path it's on.
Regal cat.
It's disappointing.
Yeah.
I agree.
There's...
Not enough critical thinking.
Well, I see part of the problem, you know, just part, not all of it, as, you know, you get the religious factions that are leaning more and more towards homeschooling, and
because they believe the schools are just indoctrination machines.
Right, but what's happening is they're basically teaching their kids to not think for themselves, to just think, you know, the kid's opinion is going to be whatever the parent's opinion is. End of story.
Needs to be tested.
And, you know, you're ending up with a generation of people who are basically just doing what they're told.
What does that mean? It needs to be tested, Cole. What was that? I think it's like half a thought.
So yeah, I'm, like you guys are saying, growing up in a bubble, kind of not having any other reference point. Other than your parents, I think it's good to kind of branch out and discover other points of view and formulate that in your own worldview. And I think in the end, once you've met enough people, you will begin to have a better grasp on reality as it pertains to the lives of others, which...
That's an interesting point. Did you know that people who do not live in the town they grew up in tend to skew liberal? and people who live in the town they grew up in tend to skew conservative.
Oh, I totally.
It's not really shocking.
Yeah,
I know it's not shocking, but like
it's not.
They've actually tested it. It turns out to be true.
It's a great observation.
It's that thing. You get away from your comfort zone. You meet new people, and it
Yes.
broadens your viewpoint.
Definitely.
That's what I love about being a musician, right? Like one night I'm playing with oud players from the Middle East.
Mm-hmm. It's a lot of it is with music too, actually.
You know what's surprising,
forever on
actually,
that.
and I've thought about this a little bit because
Because you've been around.
no, and because occasionally, even though at my advanced age, the topic of having children has come up, and one of the things I've concluded is I prefer to live in a more rural environment if that's the case. Really,
You would rather not have the interaction.
rather not have the interaction. It's a different. I feel like living in
Town.
let's call it town, but in a city-esque type environment, that there's so much information coming at you at once that you have a tendency not to really examine it closely because it's one thing after another, right? It's a great deal of stuff. Towns give you, small towns give you space.
A little bit, though, with the internet, everybody's got their phones now.
Yeah. You know what? As a parent, you can control that. You can
Right.
basically say, guess what? I'm giving you a phone that dials 2 numbers, 911 and me.
Right, but I mean, there's only a matter of time with a kid before...
A lot of it's self-discipline too.
A lot of
Like,
it's self-discipline.
a lot of
it.
people are getting like these stimuli, and like if you don't have self-discipline, you can get carried away and be like, oh, this is so great.
Also, I feel like the amount of time that you can keep children away from technology, the longer, absolutely the better, period.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And
I'm not sure I agree, but okay.
for everyone who sits there and goes, oh, kids need to be tech savvy to be competitive in the global economy, I also disagree heavily. And the reason I disagree is because I am an IT manager. I did not have technology growing up. I grew up in a town of 15,000 people, and we socialized by riding our bikes, and I did math with a pencil and paper.
You say this like I didn't.
I know, but I'm just trying to say.
This is what I love.
The thing
it
is-
does this to me all the time. We're in the band together, right? We're in the Jazz Destroyers.
The thing
Not
is,
necessarily directed.
did that lack of exposure to technology somehow make it so I couldn't have a career in information technology?
Yeah, but here's the flip side. So I remember when I bought my e-cig, the kid at the counter, he was a little younger than me, right? But he wasn't like 18. He would have been in his mid-20s.
Mm-hmm.
And he's behind the counter, and I'm just an outgoing guy, so I talk to everybody. And he says to me, yeah, I didn't touch my first computer until 2007, proudly.
Some contempt almost.
And the thought that went through my head was, that is not something I would brag about, right?
No,
There's a little bit of both, though.
There's a happy medium.
I will say this,
Yeah.
my hand-eye coordination is directly related to how many video games I played as a kid. I played a lot of video games as a kid, and then when I got onto the tennis court, I had the reflexes for it.
That's good. No, that's something good that came out of it. I mean, like even playing an instrument too, like typing and stuff. I mean, your dexterity's great.
Right, having the skill to type until keyboards go away, that will still be a skill that'll be highly valuable. But I agree, you don't have to teach that when they're like 3. You teach that when they're like...
I just think
No,
there are so many other
definitely.
ways to learn those skills.
No, definitely.
You don't even have to teach kids. I mean,
I think
you
writing-
hand-
Yeah, they
you hand
learn.
a kid any piece of technology.
they will figure it out.
They'll figure it out.
They will.
You know?
Or they won't.
I
And
mean-
that's the interesting thing. The kids that won't, that's the part we need to that's the thing we need to instill in our children, because as the economy changes, the people, like Tom was saying, some people will do great as the economy changes, and some will get left behind. The people who get left behind are the ones who look at new technology and go, nope, I'm not going to learn it. Nope.
You have to adapt to a certain
have to
extent,
adapt.
of course.
But some people inherently do adapt. They will grab a piece of technology and go, oh, I know how to work this. This is great.
Mm-hmm.
And some people, somebody has to explain them. Being the studio guy that I am, right, I'm the guy who figured out how to make all this come together. I'm
Definitely.
basically self-taught as
That's
an
being
engineer.
tech savvy, and I mean that's good.
Right.
From my yeah.
But I will tell you, over the years, if I had no integrity, I could probably go around from home studio to home studio consulting and teaching everybody else how to work their gear, and then build them some presets and be like, yeah, this is all you do. You just put this on and push some buttons and you're done. Woohoo! Go make a record. But that's not how they're made, right? Like you'd have to teach them how to place a microphone. It's not like you can just have an EQ preset that will fix their bad microphone placement. And let's be honest, if you set it up for them, the first time the dog runs into it, it's screwed up when they come back.
Can you fix it? Yeah.
So I'm
just going to back up on that, which to say is if they really, really need to be taught all that more than one time, whatever idea they're trying to get out probably isn't, one, that strong of an idea, and two, probably they're going to get tired of it pretty quick and just move on their merry way.
Right, that's true. Though the point I'm trying to make though is that you have, well, I've come to realize there are two types of people in the world. There are those that are naturally intellectually curious,
and worker bees. Sorry, man. I mean,
great foil.
It's an interesting. I wouldn't put it that way, but I understand what you're trying to say. You know what I mean? There's people who they just want to go work their job and come home, drink a beer, watch the game, and listen. I love those people to death, right? Because guess who buys records? Everybody buys records, but there's a lot of those people. But we have to figure out in this country, as automation comes in and kills the kind of jobs where you can just go and do it pretty thoughtlessly. You know, if you're going to go do a repetitive task all day long, those jobs will go away. So
pour the seal ball.
So how do we help those people that aren't intellectually curious become intellectually curious? Because that's the only way we'll be able to fix any of this.
I don't think that's a thing. I think that's a little bit of something buried in your genes. I don't think you can drag them kicking and screaming. And I have lived in Appalachia, and I'm just gonna like run roughshod over these people here. But let me just say this: they're mean. A lot of them. I mean, I get it. They work in the coal mines and all this other kind of stuff, and they feel like they have no out. But most of them won't go searching for an out either. Yeah. And for
You're
those,
describing exactly what I'm describing.
Right. But I have very little sympathy for that. Whereas you're like, we need to help them. I'm like, we need to let them just do their job and be disenfranchised.
Yeah, but when the job goes away due to automation, that's the problem.
But they're not going to leave. They're just going to stay there and starve.
That's the problem.
I think part of it is that intellectual curiosity is inherent. It's the lack of it that's taught.
By maybe neglect, possibly.
Neglect,
No, but you're right.
Deliberate methods, deliberate parenting methods, deliberate actions by teachers at some point along the line.
And religious organizations.
Well, the South has a culture. I mean, the South has a culture of discouraging that because it's sort of like, stick to studying your Bible.
Southern pride.
Don't ask questions. Your manager knows everything. You don't need to ask questions, and that's a big Southern thing. Actually, it's very.
It dates back to the plantation.
No, that's exactly it. It harkens back to the day of plantations, which is
almost.
This is the power structure. Know your place.
The good son.
Stay in your place.
Yes.
And even in today's workplace in like Kentucky and Tennessee, if you're not a manager, you're not entitled to have an opinion on anything. And that's even within departments like engineering that are otherwise well educated. It's kind of like, I'm the manager. You are going to do what I say because I'm the manager. I don't care that you have a master's or a PhD.
Yeah, even engineers aren't autonomous.
So it is a big cultural thing. But the thing is, and this may be a hot button with you guys, evolution.
Oh, triggered.
If you what happens when you reinforce a characteristic over time?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's and
Pavlov.
Just saying.
Not Pavlov. He's talking about on an
I'm talking about on an evolutionary scale. If you encourage
scales.
Yeah, if you encourage one segment of the population to be non-curious over time through generations, it will become encoded in them to be non-curious.
But even in those families, I've never met
Well, that's randomization,
a
right? There's
baby
always a chance
that's
that
not
you'll get
at least kind of curious about the world around them.
Oh, sure.
You know,
Break away, move to
granted,
Rhode Island.
you know, depending on how bad the situation is, you know, maybe by the time they're a toddler, they're not so curious. You know, a lot of people, that curiosity kind of drops off somewhere around the teen years.
At the time you get your first job.
She's waiting
Well,
tables in a
by the
diner
time-
trying to make her own niche.
By
I
the
ain't going
time you've
back.
reached,
That's a whole different part
You
of
know,
developmental
school.
psychology, though.
Yeah.
and you get that, you know, you get to the point where either you're told you're not smart enough, so you're never going to be anything, so just stop trying, or just there's like a whole cornucopia of just things that could go wrong to make you lose that curiosity.
We'll never fully know.
That's true.
You know,
But
how-
the curiosity of an infant is different from the curiosity of an adolescent, too, which
But
is...
Adult.
But it's all the same intellectual curiosity. It's like you're exploring the world around you, whether you're doing that through books or through the internet or through just sitting there in a high chair staring at the world.
It sort of
you're
is, but-
still exploring the world around you.
Yes.
I mean, it sort of
circumstance.
is. On the other hand, you can make the case for especially infants that much of their exploring the world around them is typically driven by hunger, like actual physical hunger. Where, I mean, what is driving you to explore that environment? There's a lot of new
disagree or agree.
sensations,
Could be.
and you know, depending on, it's sort of like children who have a lot of parental interaction very early. You know, like in the first 6 months to a year, seem to retain a lot of that, right? Whereas if they're left alone to their own devices and only attended to when they're hungry or when they need a change, you know, it drops off really fast.
Yeah.
So, I mean, but again, if you have a group of people who, you know, over time, enough conditioning, anything can be encoded, basically. I mean, it's a survival thing.
But it's also a survival thing to be curious, too.
Are we still on the news?
Yes.
All right.
What was the subject now?
Subject was
Listen.
Kellogg's. We're supporting Kellogg's.
Stay curious.
There we go.
Stay curious. All right.
That's the
And
theme.
talk to your children.
So they don't become Morlocks.
Yeah, exactly. All right. What's next?